Welcome back friends to another session of finite element methods for fluid dynamics. We saw in the last few sessions some very simple methods on how to approximate solutions to ordinary differential equations and partial differential equations. These were finite difference type of methods. So, as we build up ourselves for the finite element method, let us look at some preliminaries. So, today I want to talk to you about some aspects of vectors, their spaces, function spaces and so on. So, let us talk about this quantity that we see very often, a vector. So, as opposed to a scalar, a vector is going to have several components. Okay. So, let us talk about a vector in 3 dimensions. So, A is a vector and I will denote it in this course with a tilde below the quantity, and this will now have components. Okay. So, I could talk about the components as A1, A2 and let us say A3. Sometimes we use the notation that these are components like A, B, C, or we may say that these are components like A in the x direction, the projection of A in the y direction and projection of A in the z direction. They are all synonymous. Okay. We can use any notation that we would like, but in a vector form I could say that, so these are the components of A and I could write A as perhaps A1 I1 plus A2 I2 plus A3 I3, where I1, I2 and I3 are my unit vectors. I could also write the same vector in this notation as Ax I plus Ay j plus Az k, which you are perhaps more familiar with, but you know they are exactly the same things. All right. So, the components A1, A2, A3 are related to the vector A in the manner that I have written. Now, we will use a compact notation which we will denote as the index notation. So, what we are going to do is we will say a vector A has these components, you know, A1, A2, A3, and the unit vectors are I1, I2 and I3, and it is a little bit tedious to write this. So, I could simply replace this with AI, II, where I is, I have to sum if repeated, and the sum is from 1 to 3. Okay. So, wherever I appears as a repeated index, the idea is that I would expand it by summing it. So, A1 I1 plus A2 I2 and A3 I3. We will see as the course progresses that this is a very handy notation. Some of you may be already familiar with it, and I will say more about it when we use this. The next concept we want to talk about is a vector space. Right. So, consider a non-empty set and let me denote this by this V of elements A, B, C and so on. So this is a vector space. A, B, C are vectors and they constitute a vector space if V can allow the following two algebraic operations related to vector addition and scalar multiplication. And now I am going to specify these two. So first let us talk about vector addition. It's very simple. So if I have a pair of vectors, so for each pair of vectors A and B that belong to the set V. So I can choose any two vectors arbitrarily. A plus B also belongs to V. Okay. So very simple. Okay. So I should have the sum of any two arbitrary vectors also lying in the same vector space. The other thing that I would like to say is that we must contain a 0 vector. So the vector space always contains a 0 vector and we can denote that by 0. So 0 vector is something which has all its components are 0 in all the directions, such that if I add that to A, I get back A. And for every A that belongs to V, there exists a minus A vector such that A plus this minus A vector gives me a 0. Okay. I should also respect two other properties, the commutativity and associativity. So let us write down. So if I take two vectors A plus B, then they should be identically equal to the sum B plus A. Okay. So therefore the addition should be commutative. Similarly, I can talk about it being associated, which implies that if I take A plus B and add to it another vector C, again belonging to the vector space V, then I should be able to show that this is preserved, and of course this should be identically equal to simply A plus B plus C. So the order really should not matter. So that's the vector addition. And the second thing is the scalar multiplication. To be able to identify it as a vector space. So let S be a scalar, and I am going to again choose two vectors from the vector space, maybe A and B. So I must satisfy the following properties. So if I take the scalar A S and multiply that to the sum of the two vectors A and B, then this should be identically equal to SA plus SB. So this of course is the property which is the distributive property, and it should be respected. Similarly, if I take two scalars, so K is another scalar, and this I multiply with a vector A, then this should also be equal to S times A plus K times A. Okay. So we all know this, but I am just writing this formally because we might want to remind ourselves of these definitions when we do some more analysis later on. So this is the property of distributivity. We are also going to have an additional property, which is that if I take S times K times A, again S and K are two scalars, then this should be the same as Sk times A. So this of course is a property which is associativity in the context of scalar multiplication. And of course we are going to talk about a unit scalar A, and this should be identically equal to A. Okay. So that's what a vector space is. Okay. So let us take a few vectors that form a vector space. So let A1, A2, A3 all the way to AM belong to the space, the vector space V. Then I can form a linearly independent set. So these vectors form a linearly independent set if I take linear combinations of them. So I introduce certain constants. So I take C1 is the first constant, multiply that with the vector A1, C2 A2 plus C3 A3, and so on. If I take Cm Am. So if I take the linear combination of these vectors, all these vectors Am, and I set it to 0, then I can say that they are linearly independent if the following conditions are satisfied. So this happens only if C1 is equal to C2 is equal to C3 equal to C4 all the way to Cm, they are all 0. Okay. So that means these none of these vectors can be written in terms of fewer number of vectors by using their linear combination. Okay. So if this condition is satisfied, then I have a set of linearly independent vectors. Now I can talk about the dimension of the vector space. So nu has a dimension n if it contains n vectors that are linearly independent. Okay. And these vectors, these linearly independent vectors form a basis. So you must have heard of this term earlier as well. So we are going to formally put it down now. So let me give you an example. So let us consider the two-dimensional space, which means the vectors that lie in the space of this blackboard. So I could construct many such vectors, and I could ask a question that are they linearly independent, right? And it will turn out that I can form a basis by choosing any two linearly independent vectors, and we know what these vectors are. Of course, they are not unique. So one possible example is I could take a vector, a unit vector which is horizontal, and then another unit vector which is vertical, and all other vectors can be written as linear combination of these two basis vectors. So here is an example. This in two dimensions would constitute, so this is the vector I and this is the vector j, okay. And I of course is 1 0 in two dimensions, and j vector is 0 1. And if I want to write any vector in general, so if I take a vector x which has coordinates x1, x2, or you could even write them as x times y, then this vector can be written as a linear combination of x1 times 1 0 plus x2 times 0 1, okay. And this, as we know, is the vector I, and this lower one is the vector j. So I have been able to write that any general vector which lies in the plane of this blackboard, or perhaps in the plane that I have shown here, can be written as a linear combination of these two basis vectors. You can actually repeat this exercise and say, I would like to tilt my vectors and do this, okay. So this could be something like I prime, and this could be a vector j prime, and these could form a basis as well. So I just wanted to make a note here that basis is not unique. So if I take any vector space, and if I can show that I can generate n linearly independent vectors, then I can use them as basis, but there could be many combinations of vectors that form a basis. So what this example also shows you is that if I use these bases 1 0 and 0 1, I can now ask myself a question: how many vectors can I generate using this basis? And of course you know the answer. In this special case, that would be an infinite number of vectors. I can take infinite values of x1 and x2 and generate possibly all the vectors that lie in this two-dimensional space. I can do that for three-dimensional vector space as well, and so on. So sometimes we refer to that as the span of this set of vectors, or the span of V, okay.